All right, we are at the top of the hour. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar, Why You Should Migrate Your SAP Content to Microsoft 365. We appreciate you joining us today, and the first thing I always like to do is just to take a second and introduce our speakers. My name is Shayna Horka, and I am the Product Marketing Manager here at Gimel. I'm joined by our key speakers today, Gimel's Product Manager, Will Irwin, and Gimel's Director of Technical Solutions, Nathan Hansen, will also be offering his expertise during the Q&A portion of today's webinar. Now, before we get started with the presentation, I have just a few housekeeping items to go through. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to submit them in the Q&A section on your screen, and we're going to answer as many as we have time for at the end of the presentation. This session will be recorded. Oops, go back one. Sorry about that. This session will be recorded for those interested. We will send it out within 24 to 48 hours after today's session. And as always, if you have any technical difficulties, please let us know so we can assist you. Now, to kick things off, I have just a couple slides here, one actually, to tell you a little bit about Gimel and how we can help you take control of your information with our suite of solutions. Founded in 2002, Gimel is a records, information management, and governance software company that helps you balance the value your information provides with the risk it also presents. Whether you're trying to discover information in unstructured data sources, migrate content from legacy systems, or optimize systems for cost-saving benefits, Gimel can help you achieve your information governance goals. We have a client success team and a global network of partners that deliver solutions in conjunction with our key partners like Microsoft and SAP. Gimel's family of software products work together to let you create an efficient digital workplace. Our comprehensive solutions include records management, content governance for SharePoint, document management for SAP solutions, which we will talk a little bit about in this webinar, file analysis, and Gimel Migration, which helps you achieve the fastest migrations from OpenText to Microsoft 365. We're also very excited to announce our most recent acquisition of InfoLinks this week, adding robust physical records management capabilities to our growing solutions suite. But without further ado, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Will so he can get started with today's presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Shayna. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, sounds great.
All right, thanks, Shayna, and thank you all for joining the webinar. Today we'll be talking about why you should migrate your SAP content to Microsoft 365. First, we'll take a look at the key benefits of the software when storing document content related to SAP business transactions in your Microsoft 365 environment. SAP standard functionality allows for the ability to store document content so that it's accessible through the SAP user interface. The benefits this gives the user is that documents are available where the user normally expects to see them. This gives the document some context. The document has meaning because it's linked to a business transaction. It also gives the document some security in that it is available to the same end user that has access to the business transaction within SAP. And it also gives the user some efficiency in that it maintains the user's working flow. The user doesn't have to leave what they're doing to go somewhere else to find the document related to that transaction. Although this is standard basic functionality for SAP, these documents are still getting stored somewhere. And if this isn't planned for accordingly, then it could potentially have some greater or unexpected costs associated with it. The document storage that contains these documents that are accessible from SAP should be managed in a document lifecycle from beginning to end. They should be available to other business processes outside of SAP so that they can be accessible for collaboration as well as cost efficient to store. These costs, these these are costs, but they are also actually key benefits for storing these documents in Microsoft SharePoint. The three most common default options for storing these documents are the SAP database, which is where that document content will reside if there isn't any additional configuration. However, this could vastly increase the size of the SAP database, which is it's an issue, especially as organizations look to move toward SAP HANA. With SAP HANA, the SAP database is stored in memory, which is great for certain things like real-time analytics and data aggregation, but it doesn't add any value to store document content. And because of the additional size of the database, the necessary memory to hold that database becomes a cost issue. Another common place for storing these documents related to SAP transactions is in the SAP Content Server, which is a free reference implementation of the Content Server protocols that enable this functionality in the background. It is available to SAP customers, but there are issues with using it. Although it's inexpensive and it's inexpensive to implement and license, it still requires some IT infrastructure to run, which is really only focused on providing that content to the SAP front end. It doesn't function as a true ECM solution for enterprise-wide access. There are also third-party solutions within proprietary ECM models like OpenText, but they are expensive in terms of licensing and total cost of ownership, and usually require specialized skill sets. The migration to SAP HANA is a big issue when storing content within the SAP database. The ability to access this content across the enterprise as needed for other business processes or simply for non-SAP users, and then the expensive licenses, upgrades, and skill set for proprietary ECM solutions are the primary costs of using those platforms for storing documents. This leads us into the benefits of using Microsoft 365 for storing these documents. Whether it's preparing the SAP database for HANA or getting out of an expensive proprietary ECM solution like OpenText, there are clear cost benefits for storing this document content in Microsoft 365. Because of the additional functionality in SharePoint related to Power Automate and Teams, there are benefits for being able to automate certain document-based processes outside of SAP, such as approval workflows, as well as the ability to access that shared content effectively across the organization. There are also some tools available for managing risk within SharePoint for maintaining that document content, such as access control, some personal identification, as well as third-party solutions like Giml for being able to create, retain, and dispose documents with an appropriate lifecycle. So we covered some of the benefits of using this type of solution and specifically why using Microsoft SharePoint as the document repository will give you both the benefit for front-end access from SAP, as well as enterprise-wide access and document control in a mature ECM system like Microsoft SharePoint. Next, we'll talk about a key obstacle that's often perceived, which is the ability to migrate the existing document content from whatever the legacy solution was into SharePoint. So here we've got some basic options for migrating that content. The first is that there is basic SAP migration tools that can be used for this type of migration. They are provided by SAP, and they take advantage of the concept of the content repository. Content repository is a configuration within your SAP system for directing that document content to different repositories, whether that is a content server or using Gimmel's document management for SAP solutions to a Microsoft 365 SharePoint site. This is a very straightforward tool available with some third-party enhancements that provide a more comprehensive auditing and messaging around these kinds of migrations. Very often, the standard SAP migration tools are more than enough for moving document content between content repositories that are connected to SAP. For very large sets of document content, we use the idea of import-export of that document content. This is primarily for legacy ECM systems and is used for transferring large amounts of content and making it available for external auditing. Now, we'll do a little bit of whiteboarding, kind of, for what an existing system likely looks at prior to a migration. So near the top left, you'll see the SAP application server. If, like I said earlier, if nothing has been configured for retaining this document content, then that archive and retrieval process is usually going directly to the SAP database. This usually causes the SAP database to grow in size such that you have a database size concern when moving to SAP HANA. The other likely scenario is you have a proprietary ECM implementation like OpenText or a content server implementation that is configured as a content repository in your SAP system. Then the archive and retrieval flows go in this direction. And in the background, the system is likely communicating with its own database, where it's storing the content as well as retrieving it when it's requested. This should give you a little bit of a high-level idea of where that document is stored and retrieved from prior to migration. When using the standard SAP migration tools, the flow of the document data go in the following directions. Documents stored in the SAP database can be directly retrieved from it. Likewise, document content within a proprietary ECM system or content server can also be retrieved by the same tools that would normally serve it to serve it back to the end user, doing the same communication with its own database. In these examples, using the SAP tools, the SAP system simply uses the content repository for document management for SAP solutions to then re-archive that same document content linked to the same transactions. Then document management for SAP solutions uploads the document to Microsoft 365 SharePoint Online. Optionally, there is a process to retrieve that metadata, which is then passed on from document management for SAP solutions into SharePoint Online as SharePoint properties on that document. Now, what you have with this is a smooth transition of document and transaction information from either the SAP database or proprietary ECM system and then uploaded into SharePoint with the metadata retrieved from the SAP transaction. A more complex scenario is if you are interested in the export import while there is still this connection between the SAP database and the regular archive and retrieval connections set up with document management for SAP and the proprietary ECM system, the capacity generally exists to export that content to some intermediary file server. It provides the same communication back to its own database. There are then industry standard tools for importing that document content directly into SharePoint. From there, we have a few options. With document management for SAP solutions, there is functionality for linking content that has been uploaded into SharePoint to SAP transactions so that the archive flow actually goes in this direction. Once the document is linked, then you can also configure additional metadata flows in order to fill that metadata in SharePoint for that stored content. Although a little bit more complex, this is a scenario that can be considered for various reasons. You may need to shut down your ECM system ahead of the migration, or there may be a concern around downtime and you need a more direct switchover. Gimel supports both methods in terms of how we migrate that content into SharePoint and then have it retrievable again from the SAP system. So as you can see, there is a straightforward migration of document content, whether you use the standard SAP tools with optional third-party wrappers or the full export-import of that document content. This allows you to realize the benefits and return on investment for switching over to SharePoint so that can help as part of your preparation for an ultimate migration to HANA. This allows you to make that same document content that might otherwise be locked down with limited ECM licenses or even trapped within the SAP database. It allows you to expose that to your SharePoint enterprise users. And very often this allows you to reduce your IT spend with getting off of the more locked down ECM systems into SharePoint. We are also excited to announce the expansion of our information governance solutions to include Gimel Migration. This software speeds your migration to Microsoft 365. Gimel Migration helps organizations fully leverage Microsoft 365 by simplifying complex migrations from legacy ECM systems like OpenText Content Server and Documentum to SharePoint Online. Some features of Gimel Migration include things like object, folder, and metadata mapping, things like link redirection, and support for all object types in OpenText. I'll now talk a little bit more about the benefits of Microsoft 365 in terms of storing your document content. Our customers realize that bringing their strategic IT systems, SAP and Microsoft together, they can achieve new levels of performance by delivering business solutions that optimize content access and business processes. SharePoint is already the platform for collaboration, content storage, search, and communication. Therefore, training and administration costs for a solution built on this platform are usually very low. Microsoft's architecture is built to be cloud ready and hybrid ready, cloud and hybrid ready, unlike other ECM solutions. its native capabilities and ecosystem partners also support the widest options for mobility in the market. Companies now realize Microsoft is the ideal enterprise information management platform to deliver business solutions because it can be easily extended. And Gimel enables even more value to be extracted from that strategy to deliver SAP content, data, and processes in SharePoint or Microsoft 365. And document management for SAP solutions delivers the low cost, higher adoption, and shorter time to value for SAP content management and process optimization. This is yet another example of how document management for SAP solutions can connect your SAP systems to SharePoint. One of the advantages of using Microsoft SharePoint in this way is the additional value you get from hyperscaling that Microsoft is enacting with their global infrastructure, whether that's optimizing performance by locating your ECM SAP systems in similar resource groups, or it's controlling data sovereignty for data privacy requirements throughout the world. Then obviously you've got your top industry security, scalability, and redundancy that Microsoft provides. One of the key things about moving to Microsoft is customers that use it today are usually very satisfied with the availability and high quality Microsoft and third-party professional services and solutions in the greater SharePoint ecosystem. Microsoft has a clear cloud-first vision and has invested deeply in both hyperscaling their Azure network and updating the scalability and architecture of SharePoint as they moved into the cloud. By combining SAP and Microsoft technologies, this really ensures that you'll be on the leading edge of innovation and business software going forward. SAP has moved toward real-time analytics with the in-memory HANA database, and Microsoft is building Project Cortex to use machine learning to apply metadata to documents based on its content. By bringing the document context out of your SAP business transactions and then storing it in SharePoint, you're essentially future-proofing your organization to enable it to take advantage of the new intelligent capabilities that Microsoft is building into its platform. As already mentioned today, we are both Microsoft and SAP partners. Our document management for SAP solutions product is SAP certified. More and more, we are building out technologies for the cloud. We have industry-leading technology for lifecycle automation and records management, and our software is deployed in over 14 different countries and over 500,000 licensed end users. We also have a professional services staff who are subject matter experts for document lifecycle management, information governance strategies, and records management, as well as experts in implementing all of our software products. And excellent support staff also comes along with our software offerings. All right, Shana, I'm going to hand it back over to you, I think.
Thanks, Will. We have a couple minutes left, so I want to be respectful of time. I'm going to bring in Nathan Hampson, who, like I mentioned before, is our Director of Technical Solutions, to give us a little bit of expertise, as well as Will, with these Q&A questions. So I'll just go ahead and start so we can get through as many as we can. So the first one is, can we add metadata in SharePoint even if we're not storing it in our legacy content server?
Well, hi, this is Nathan. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Just checking. Okay, yeah, absolutely. So adding the metadata in properties in SharePoint is not contingent on having done it before. So that can be configured to go forward for new documents archived, as well as it can even be used to retrieve that metadata out of SAP transactions and applied to migrated documents. So.
Great. And the next question we have is, we have millions of documents that we would like to move to SharePoint. Is that reasonable or even possible using the migration methods that you described?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're using documents within SAP at that level, more than likely you're using some sort of legacy ECM system, proprietary ECM system, to store that document content. So in those cases, we generally would advise using professional migration tools like Gimel Migration to migrate that content with a full audit log into SharePoint Online. And then it's a simple configuration change just to use document management for SAP solutions to then access and retrieve that going forward. So it may seem like when you have a large installation like that, that it would be inefficient to move it over. It's actually very easy, and the ROI is there very quickly for doing so.
Great. And the last one we have, unless another question sneaks in, please feel free to submit any questions you may have. I just saw one sneak in. So maybe we have two more questions. So the next question is, can Gimel provide migration consulting as part of implementation?
Yes, we do. We do migrations quite a bit, both large and small. So we can definitely help you.
Great. And the next question we have is, does Gimel apply the retention policies in SAP as well as in 365? I want to know if the document is erased from Microsoft 365, or that is erased from Microsoft 365 is deleted as well in SAP.
So SAP has its own retention policies, but essentially when that document is removed via for example, Gimel records management via destruction, then that document is fully removed, right? So what that means is it's not stored separately in SAP. So when that document is disposed of at the end of its life cycle, that is effectively destroying it. Yeah. Which is, again, one of the reasons why to move that document content into SharePoint, where you have the tools to manage that content effectively.
Great. Well, that's the last question, unless anyone sneaks another one in, but all of our email addresses are up there on the screen. You can email either one of us if you can think of anything post this webinar. Well, you can go ahead and go to the next slide. If anyone has any other questions, you can always email us at info@gimel.com as well, or visit our website at www.gimel.com. And as I mentioned in the beginning, we will be sending out a recording of this webinar between 24 to 48 hours in the version of a thank you email. So if you're interested in the recording, it will be available on our site and also sent to you in a thank you email. But we appreciate everybody joining us today and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Great. Thank you, Shanna. Thank you, Will.
Thanks.
Thank you all.